We got Phil
Hi, and
in New York.
welcome
How
to
you doing? Phil?
Phil.
Hello.
You there?
Yeah. My name is Phil. I'm calling from New York City.
Hey, Phil.
Hi.
Before I ask my questions, can I make a general comment about your show?
Sure.
Okay. How did
Hey,
you
guys.
find our show, by the way?
Sorry?
How did you find our show?
I was actually going to say that. A friend of mine gave me a YouTube link of a clip about Matt Dillahunty speaking. And that's how I started watching your show. I've been watching it, I think, 4 hours a day now for a week.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Oh,
Ridiculous.
that's a bad idea.
I've never seen someone of such a quick wit as you, Matt. Russell is other co-host there.
Yeah,
Yes.
Russell's here today.
Hi.
And thank you, even though I'll disagree with you.
No offense to the rest of the crew, but Russell and Matt are my favorites.
Oh.
I want to give a shout out to all the crew because I know it takes a lot of work to do this.
And by the way, I'll comment that, well, I did get some good feedback from that and positive comments like yours. I have no problem at all admitting that most of the good ideas I have, I steal from other people.
True, but you have your own way of giving them out. That's nice.
Well, thanks.
Well, my first question is a quick trivia. Have you, Matt in particular, or Russell, done any debates or talks with Christians?
Have done any what?
Debates with Christians?
Yeah, debates or discussions or something like that with Christians.
I think I just finished one on
I
the
can't
call
think of
before.
any formal ones, although, we do this on TV every week, and also often when the opportunity arises in public.
Yeah, we've done it by answering calls. We've done it in email. We've done it on forums. I've done it over telephone. As far as a formal debate with Christians or theists or some other variety, no, I haven't.
Okay. Can I get some kind of online versions of those? Besides the show?
Yeah, send me an email and I don't really think I have copies of it. I mean, some of them are private email discussions, but I mean outside of the calls and posts on a few forums and a couple editorials, I don't know that there's anything I can really send. But
If you're interested in watching what I've been writing on message boards, well, for one thing, you can check out the Atheist Experience blog, atheistexperience.blogspot.com, which has a lot of interesting discussion threads. And also, my main hangout of choice on the internet is Motley Fool, www.fool.com. They've got a message board system with a specific board called Atheist Fools. So search for Atheist Fools at the Motley Fool. My handle is Kazim, Kazim.
Okay. The reason I asked that, I think a lot of people are like me in this, they get their information from these kinds of shows and MP3s instead of reading books. It's very informative.
well, I'm really glad that anything that we've done on the show has been helpful for people, since that's the biggest reason we do it. Like I don't know if you were. I'm guessing while you were on hold, you were able to hear the last caller, but any purpose for having a conversation with him isn't necessarily to convince that person, but for other people who may be on the fence, who are watching or who are trying to analyze, who's saying what and why and what the justification is. On the other hand, in fairness, I did get to hang up on him, and I guess that's a little bit of the power of actually having the show. But if I don't do it soon, I'm going to get hate mail for letting somebody go on for 15 minutes and saying nothing.
Right. So my two real questions. The first one, I asked first a group of Christians that were pretty respected in an online chat room.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
They didn't give me much of an answer, so I'm turning to you. The question I asked them was, there are parables in the Bible and stories that are not to be taken literally. What is stopping us from taking the Bible literally? And the answer they gave me was very short. Go look up hermeneutics. And I did, and it doesn't make sense. How can I, for example, judge the history of a history textbook just by interpreting it my way? So what do you think about hermeneutics, and how would you kind of play devil's advocate and answer the question, how can we take some of the Bible as truth and not just as a story?
I don't know what
I had a few
hermeneutics is.
discussions with some people involved in hermeneutic research. I'm not an expert on it in any way. I had a difficult time getting any real answers from them. It seems, and I'm just a layman commenting without a whole lot of expertise, it seems to me to be just a fancier way of interpreting things, but trying to rely on a more historic perspective. And if one of the questions is, and I don't care what methodology we use, to me, there's no reason to put a new label on it or come up with a new way. There are things that you believe, and in order to believe something, you must have been convinced that it's the truth. So take your belief and then examine what justification you have for it. I don't care to what degree you believe it. Maybe you call it knowledge. Maybe you...
Is this the whole thing where you talk about interpreting Scripture in the light of other Scripture?
Kind of.
Yeah.
But
Cop out.
My concern isn't so much what you claim as knowledge. Let's just focus on belief. What your justification is it? Now we know when we go through and look at the Bible that there are plenty of things, historical claims that we can't ever verify because we don't have any additional sources. There are people who run around claiming to be biblical archaeologists who will come upon the ruins of an ancient city and claim, aha, this is Sodom and Gomorrah. Maybe they're correct, maybe they're not. We need some more evidence in order to justify it. But even the existence of an ancient city doesn't necessarily mean that the stories in the Bible about what happened in that city are actually accurate. I mean, Russell came up with the example or used it before. If 10,000 years from now somebody unearths New York, that doesn't mean the story about Spider-Man are true. There are some things in the Bible that we know historically either aren't true or aren't justified or contradict themselves. The idea when we try to put a birth date on Jesus, for example, was he born during the time of Herod, which would be 4 to 6 BC, or was he born when Quirinius was governor, which is about 10 years later, and Herod was no longer alive? So when trying to date that, you've got two claims that in the Bible that seem to contradict each other, and there's no way to reconcile them along with known history. In that case, the best you can do is say, we don't know what the true story is. But it seems to me that if the stories were true, and if these stories are the result of an omniscient God who's trying to relay a very important message to all of humanity, there should be no problem at all discovering what is and isn't true. Matter of fact, there shouldn't be anything that's not true.
God should be the best author who ever lived. I mean, he should be more gripping than Michael Crichton, Stephen King, all your favorite authors put together. He should be, really easy to understand.
Yeah. There shouldn't be any confusion over interpretation. Supposedly, this is the single most important message that anybody should ever be, familiar with.
I've made a suggestion to God that if he's really serious about getting his message across, then one thing he might consider is like doing a State of the Universe address, maybe once every 10 years. Just show up in every pool of water and television set in the world.
He'd just be pandering to the Christians.
But at least it would clarify what his point is.
Maybe he'd be pandering to the Jainists.
Maybe.
Anyway, Phil, that's about the best answer I can get you right now. But if you email tv@atheist-community.org, I can probably answer some of your other questions or at least direct you to somebody who can, I hope.
Do you have time for one more question?
Sure, shoot. Right, yeah, make it quick. We got like 10 minutes or 13 minutes left.
Okay. It's about death, and most atheists agree that there is no afterlife and death is the end. What would you say? Would it be correct to place the focus of human achievement to kind of not prevent death, but research mortality and mortality, and all these kind of wacky ideas now about singularities and whatever? And further direction of the question is, do you think death is inevitable in some sense? Even if you go to heaven, would you eventually die insofar as you would stop remembering your identity or something like that?
When you're asking about what the correct thing is to do, you're asking about subjective values, and I can only speak for myself and say, yeah, I'm all for making me live as long as possible. I'm not saying that that's what everybody has to do. I'm just saying I share your value in that. And the other question was...
Well, whether or not there should be research on mortality and immortality. I think we're doing that in the only sense that's useful, which is studying reality as it is, studying to learn everything we can know about the human body, studying to determine what causes aging, what causes the body to break down. Maybe if there's a possibility that we can extend human life. Maybe if we do more study in consciousness and what makes me me, there may be a way, the sci-fi thing of transferring intelligence to some, computer thing that lives. I think we're a long way off from anything like that, if it's even possible. I have no way of knowing. Definitely areas where I certainly think that we should be doing more research in those areas than studying whether or not prayer works, because we've already done that, and guess what? It doesn't. At best, it works at the same rate as chance, and sometimes it seems to be harmful because of the pressure it potentially puts on people to perform for God. I think we should be doing, scientific investigation in all those areas. I don't know how you'd investigate immortality, because you could certainly investigate longevity. It'd be like trying to investigate infinity.
I'm sorry to interrupt you.
No, go ahead.
That was my other part is, do you think immortality is possible? Because Christians say you go to heaven and you are there forever, or you go to hell forever. It isn't even possible to exist forever.
Probably not, because even if you never died of old age, you could still have a rock dropped on your head.
I'm not sure. I think it would depend very much on how you define
and
life.
Plus it would be hard to make it past the heat death of the universe.
Right. Yeah.
But other than that,
I mean, eventually the universe, probably based on our current understanding, is just going to cool down to the point where anything that we could possibly consider alive, including energy, just dissipates.
right.
So infinite? Nah. Who knows how long we might be able to live? Yeah, it's worth investigating for sure.
Okay.
I gotta let you go, Phil. Thanks very much for the call and the kind
you for
words,
calling, yes.
and feel free to drop an email